A quick note before we get into the episode. Oversharing is a podcast for entertainment purposes only. It is not a medical podcast and does not constitute medical or psychological advice. Always seek the advice of your physician or mental health professional. Hello, and welcome back to Baby Steps. I'm Jordana Abraham.
And I am Dr. Naomi Bernstein.
And we are so happy to have our guest, Lauren Speed Hamilton, on today's episode to give us her whole fertility journey story and just get the full background on your non-easy, non-linear path to pregnancy. Because I think the more stories we share like that, the more normalized it becomes. So why don't we start just to why don't you give me a sense of like, okay, so you got married on TV, on national television, the first season of Love is Blind. You guys were like the fan favorite, I would say, of the whole country, like rooting for you, like absolutely no controversies. It was like the best thing to watch. So you get married, and then when did the idea of having kids even like come into the conversation?
Yeah, well, first off, thank you for having me, ladies. Super excited to be here. Any chance I can get to talk about my fertility journey, I'm all here for it because people need to talk about it more. So when we first got married from the show, we decided that because of the way that we got married, it was fast, it was on television. We wanted to take some time to get to know each other. So we said, we'll start trying for kids maybe in about a year or two. So a year or two into our marriage, we started trying naturally. We did that for a while, over a year, and it was just like, okay, this isn't like it's happening as easily as we thought that it would happen. So from that point, my mom's like, well, maybe you should just go like see a doctor, just make sure everything's good down there. And I'm like, okay, sure. So I go, and so she ends up doing like a scan, of course, of my uterus. She found fibroids. But at the time, they're like, okay, well, these are in small. So I think that you can continue with your fertility journey.
So the doctor's basically like, everything looks fine, can't see any issues. It just, you have these fibroids, but that shouldn't actually be your issue. So just keep doing what you're doing.
Exactly. So, and at the time, this was my OB. I hadn't transferred over to a fertility clinic yet. So, we continue trying for another 6 months. And I'm like, okay, like we're losing valuable time. At the time, I was in my like 30s, mid 30s. The time started to kind of creep up a little bit. So I started to get anxious because, like they say, whenever you go to the doctor, then you become a geriatric pregnancy, which is not my favorite.
Exactly.
Not my favorite description for women.
At 35, which seems like, it seems crazy, but
it's crazy. I feel like life's just starting, you're just now having the time to do it, really. So once again, it wasn't working still. And so my OBG was like, I know a great fertility specialist that I think you should go see. Just, maybe try IUIs, try something that gives you a little bit more assistance.
Mm-hmm. And sorry to interrupt. Did they run any like tests or anything at that point? No.
That was the thing. The only thing that I did was like blood panels, making sure that my hormones were okay. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking like, okay, I know everyone says I'm healthy. Why am I having such trouble conceiving? My hormones are good. Yes, I have these fibroids, but they're telling me that they're fine. So we do the IUIs. We end up doing 1, 2, 3, 4 IUIs.
Wow.
And I'm like, something's wrong. Why is this not working? At the time, the doctor that I was with was like, okay, well, now we can take it a step up because you've done this for this long. And I just, in my mind, I'm like, time is going by. Like, is something wrong with me? Because the mental part of going through fertility treatments is just as tough as the physical to me, if not tougher.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And just one quick question there. As you got to that point, were you spending a lot of time mentally on like ovulation detectors and timing and going through all the mental of like, we got to do it now? Or was it just like trying? Yeah, you were already doing all that.
Yeah. As soon as we switched over to the fertility clinic, they kind of told us all about the ovulation strips and the testing and all the things. My husband even got his sperm tested, just to make sure that we were covering all the boxes, doing everything right. And the ovulation tracking is hard to me because it's like, and maybe I'm telling too much of our business. My husband might get mad. It got to the point where it was like, okay, it's the ovulation window, and that would become like the only time where we would
Right.
be like, okay, it's time to have sex now. But then during this time, I started going to therapy, and my therapist is like, no, you guys need to continue growing your relationship because the fertility became like the sole focus of everything. It
Right.
just started taking over. Yeah.
That's why I ask, because I know sometimes like the relationship and the background of this and your sex life and being able to, not have it be all consuming is really tough.
Right. And I think whenever there's like a timing pressure on sex, it really just takes like a lot. It makes it very like transactional, not like mechanical almost feeling, because you're like, we're doing this like for not for each other, for like something totally beyond us. And it just definitely takes all of the, it's not like, it doesn't feel as fun. Yeah, at all. So totally feel that. So like they didn't give you a reason. They were just like unexplained, like give you
unexplained.
everything look
That's
good.
what they said. And in my mind, I'm like, well, what could it be? The only thing I can think of is these fibroids. I brought it up again to my doctor at the time. She's like, well, you're okay. It doesn't look like, I kept getting that answer. So it almost started to become like a tug and pull with my relationship with my then fertility specialist. I ended up changing eventually. But from that point, then, we moved on. She's like, okay, I think it's time to do the egg retrieval and try to actually, create embryos and try to do an implantation that way. So moving on to that step, me and my husband, that was another thing in our relationship that we kind of struggled with. I was open to first off, doing fertility treatments in general, I was kind of opposed to at the beginning because I'm like, well, if we're not getting pregnant naturally, maybe it's not meant to happen. Like, are we forcing ourselves to have a baby? Like,
Okay.
And I had to do some soul searching, prayed about it. And I was like, my husband as well, he helps me. Even though he's very science minded, he's literally a scientist. He's like, well, if God made medical treatments, so this can also help us get pregnant. So, don't feel like we're like using science to create some mystical baby or something like that. Cause I don't know, it was scary to me doing fertility treatments.
I'm wondering if it sounds like maybe there was a moment there where spirituality was coming into it, maybe presenting itself differently for both of you. And you were kind of like, maybe we should let God, take the wheel here. And he was kind of like, well, God created doctors and IVF. So
exactly. Yeah. That was my first thought. Yeah. Like, if God wanted us to get pregnant, it would just happen. Like, we're forcing it. What if, because we're forcing it, something bad happens? All the bad thoughts, that now looking back, it's like not silly because I know a lot of people go through that. But I mean, my husband was right. God created medical doctors and treatments so that we can live our best life. And, I think that just clicked and I was like, okay, let's do it. So then we moved on to the next step of the egg retrievals. We did our first implantation. It failed. That was tough because at this point, like I mentioned, we did all these IUIs. We did an implantation. What is going on?
Right. You do one egg retrieval?
And then, right. We do.
Okay. So you made a viable embryo to do this transfer. It doesn't work. Is it that then confirming whatever your deep fears are about, like, again, this is like not meant to be, or this is never going to happen for me, or?
Yeah. Where I feel like I wish that we did something different. Me and my husband both say this. When we did the first egg retrieval, we had 3 embryos that came back healthy. At the time, we asked this doctor who I ended up leaving about testing. And she said, oh, I don't think you need to test, which looking back, I really wish that we had tested the embryos because it just could have saved us heartbreak.
Right.
At the time, I didn't realize that just because you have these embryos, it still could be not as healthy and it could not implant for that reason if you don't get them tested. So I wish that we had did that. So we didn't do that step. So we still kind of kept these 3 embryos and we were just going to keep trying.
Right. Okay. So,
Yeah.
so the first one doesn't work, the first
No,
transfer, right?
first one doesn't work. Of course, I was heartbroken. Mentally, I was just in a bad place after that. It was really difficult for me. And so my doctor's like, well, do you want to just turn around and do it again? Like, right, the next cycle, like just continue. So I'm like, okay, let's do it. Let's keep it
Right,
going,
yeah.
even though mentally, but
Yeah.
I've heard.
I think there can be that kind of like, not like almost like internal pressure, like to kind of just like knuckle through it. Like, and
Yeah.
I'll take care of my mental health like after, like, or like maybe I won't need to, maybe it'll just happen. And then I won't even,
Mm-hmm.
I can just like bulldoze my way through this. I've definitely felt that before. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I wonder too, in that moment, it's like, because of that bulldoze mentality, you don't take time to grieve that loss and that process. Whether it's you have a miscarriage, or just you've gone through this whole process long of just deciding that you want to do it,
Yeah.
then actually doing, poked and prodded, all the things. And you're probably like, okay, we're going to do the IVF and we're going to have our baby. And then when it doesn't work, there's a grief process that probably, you said you were devastated, but then even we in this moment go quickly to, okay,
Then what?
Then
Yeah.
what?
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And you probably
Exactly.
do that right in that moment. But I wonder if you did have time at all to process, or I know you said you were in therapy at the time.
I was in therapy, and my husband Cameron, he's such a wonderful partner. I leaned on him a lot. During this time in my life, I was isolating a lot, which isn't always the best thing. That's kind of one of my coping mechanisms that I work on in therapy. So I just really had to push myself to open up, like, this is my partner. I have to talk to someone, and talk to him. And he was so excellent throughout that process, and just supporting me and keeping me from becoming hopeless, because I feel like in IVF, it could be easy to fall down that hole where you start to lose hope. Like, it's not gonna happen.
Right.
This
Nothing's
and that.
working. At this point,
Yeah.
and then when you've done the medical interventions and they still don't work, and sort of, I think that IVF is sort of a little bit like glamorized. I don't want to say glamorized, but a little bit glossed over, like the actual effectiveness of it. Cause you see all these people who tell you their success stories, and like, you don't hear that much about the rounds that fail or the people who don't get any embryos. And so I think it can feel like, okay, I've done this and now I'm like done. And there's just so many other things that have to go right.
Absolutely. So from that point, we decide to go into the second implantation. We already have this embryo. Let's try to do it. Once again, these are not tested. This time, which I feel like it's all bad when it doesn't work out, but I feel like this was harder because it was a miscarriage.
I'm sorry.
Thank you. And it actually like happened right around our anniversary. So we're like happy, and then like we go to take the test, and the hardest thing about that was that it was positive at first. We did test early, which I didn't do that again. It was positive at first, and then I tested the morning of the blood test, and it was negative.
Okay.
Oh my God, I feel like
so it was a
I
chemical.
was so confused. Yeah. It was a chemical pregnancy.
Right.
But
those are the worst.
I was so confused because, and at this point I felt kind of guilty because I was honestly secretly testing myself without telling Cam. He kind of caught me. And then so when he caught me, it was the positive test. So
Right.
he saw it and he got excited. So I feel like that's the part that I kept mentally playing in my head. Like, I felt bad for him.
Yeah.
I felt bad for me, but I was just like, oh God, he was so excited, like the look on his face. And then for it to be, a chemical pregnancy, that was hard. After that one, I took a break.
Yeah. It kind of feels like you're being tortured when I've had a few chemicals, and they always feel like they're like, you see a positive test, and you're like, you have that, whether it's a day or a week or however long, you're like, maybe it's all this, like you would envision it all coming together. And then it's so short-lived, and it's just really just like really messes with you. I remember praying before my pregnancy test that if it was not going to work, could it just be like a full negative, so that I wouldn't be like, because it feels like you're being messed
Emotional
with.
roller coaster. Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely.
And was that the beginning of when you started to see your husband, like taking an emotional toll on him? Is that part of why that?
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cam has always he's like the strong one. You know, we all have that person in our
Mhm.
family who feel like they have to be the strong one. And but God, just the disappointment in his face that morning when I took the test and I was like, it's negative, and my confusion and his confusion and us going to Google and being like chemical pregnancy and then still having to go take the blood test that day, knowing what the fertility clinic was going to say when they called us back. It was one of the hardest days of our life. And I
Yeah.
wouldn't wish that on anybody. It was bad. But so after that, we took a break. I definitely needed a break. No more back to backs after
Yeah.
that. And I was just like, something has to be going on. So that's when I decided to get a MRI. I think that's the correct thing, for my fibroids to see. It has to be the fibroids because, you know, they're saying it's not my age. Everything else is okay. This is the only thing that it could possibly be in my mind. I'm not a doctor. So I get an MRI. It comes back that I have one fibroid the size of like a large grapefruit that was attached to my uterus,
Oh my
and like
God.
6 others. Yeah.
Was it
So in the
painful? Any?
it just felt heavy. You
Okay.
know, it felt
Yeah.
heavy. My menstruals, I would get cramps and kind of heavy bleeding, but I mean, at the time, we were doing so many fertility meds. My
Right. You
body
don't
was
know
doing
what's
all
from
types of
what.
hormones. I didn't know what was normal, what wasn't. So finding that out and just kind of being frustrated with my fertility doctor at this point, like, I told you, the fibroids, and now I have like,
Right. And you've already been through all of these, this whole process of the 4 IUIs
yeah,
and the two failed transfers. And like,
yeah.
just to find out now, I can see how that'd be incredibly frustrating.
Oh my, and time, like time
Yeah.
waste. It's been like a year at this point that we've gone through all of this. The year before going to the OBG, so we're like two years, 2.5 years in now. And it's
Right.
just like the frustration. So of course I took a break after that. Like I definitely needed a break. Maybe it was like 5 months. I decided to switch doctors. Um, I go find a new OB, and she's immediately like, "We have to take the fibroids out." I mean, I don't even see why this wasn't tested. There's like a huge fibroid attached to your uterus. It's taking your blood and all this and that. So in my mind, I kind of knew that that would help, but also was frustrating because I knew if I had surgery, since it was so large, I had to have an open myomectomy, which is where you have to have a C-section to remove the fibroids.
Okay.
So I knew that that would also prolong the fertility portion of everything even more. So I ended up doing the surgery. Then I think my doctor's like, well, you know, in about, what did she say? That was in August. She was saying by December I was okay to start back with like, November doing egg retrieval. No, October, sorry, doing another egg retrieval because I just had the one left. And I was like, well, I want to be sure that, you know, if that one doesn't work, I'm not doing this again.
Right.
So, you know, we decided to do another egg retrieval where we ended up getting um, one more egg, and then we had one left over from the previous cycle. So we tested that one, and they all came back healthy.
Oh, that's
Thank
great.
God.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Okay.
God. So after that, I did the surgery. I had to heal. It was very hard. I've never had surgery in my life, but I felt so much better, so much better. And then just the medicines, when we started, my body was reacting so much quicker than previously after taking the fibroid out. So I think that that was definitely,
Right.
you know,
It's kind of
affecting
crazy.
it.
I think it's so hard, and I've had this too, where it's kind of feels like I feel like from when you're young, you're taught like respect doctors. They have like so much knowledge. They know better than you. They've been through so much training, which is, I think, is true. I don't think most of the time, but it does, I think, sometimes be like, well, I'm not going to like push back on this because like why would I know better than the doctor? The doctor does this every day, all the time. So I totally feel you in like that frustration and just kind of feeling like that one of the hardest part is like you're putting your trust into someone where like, it's not always, they don't always know the best way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like a doctor has to be a good fit for you, just like a therapist or anything else like that. Like you have to find the one that's good for you, that you feel comfortable with. And, with that doctor, I kind of felt like a number. It wasn't real. I would talk to the nurses more than her. It just wasn't,
Right.
it wasn't working.
So when the new doctor, just so that for the listeners at home, like what do you recommend in looking if you, I guess a twofold question of like, what do you feel like people should, like, how do you feel like someone should know or feel like they know if they're with the wrong person? And then like, what were you looking for after having that experience in the new doctor, like having had that experience that you were like looking out for, and that listeners, if they're going through infertility,
Yeah,
like they should look out for in a doctor?
absolutely. I felt like with the old doctor, I just felt like I kept bringing things up, and I don't feel like she took it as seriously as I kind of wanted her to. Like mentioning the fibroids, I did that more than once, and she was like, "Oh, that's okay." So I was like, I keep saying it.
Right.
Also, just for me, it just wasn't enough communication, and some people are okay with that. I want to talk to my doctor all the time. I want us to have like a back and forth. So I feel comfortable with you. You feel comfortable with me. I just like to be involved. It's my body. We're doing something very intimate and very important, trying to conceive a child. Like, I just don't want to talk to the nurse and then only see you when we're doing implantation.
Right. And it can feel so
Yeah.
impersonal. And I feel like,
Mm-hmm.
and it's tough because I think when you first go to a fertility doctor, you're kind of like, well, I don't need to like vet them that much because I'm just going to do this. It's going to work. And then I'm going to be done. So I'm going to
Mm-hmm.
be here like I'm
Right.
going to be here like a couple months. I'll see them like 4 times and that'll be it. But then it's weird when you're like, then you're doing something for like 2, 3, 4 years. You're like, you think about how much time you've spent with this person, putting your trust into this office and all of the staff there. So it is I think such a bigger decision, I think, for fertility specifically too, for which doctor to pick.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I also felt like my previous doctor didn't. Sorry, I have pregnancy brain, but she didn't have enough. God, I just had the word. She wasn't quick enough to make decisions. She was kind of like, I don't know. So when I went to my new doctor, decisiveness, that's the word I was
Right.
looking for. My new doctor was like, this is what we need to do. This is the course of action we're going to do. We're going to try this. If that doesn't work, we're going to do B. She just had a plan, my new doctor.
Right.
And that was my OB. She actually introduced me to a new fertility doctor once I got there, but after she performed my fibroid surgery. And the relationship was just great. I felt better. The communication was better. She answered all my questions without the I don't knows. Let me see, and it just felt comfortable. I felt like this is the right decision, the right pick.
Any lingering anger or resentment?
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yes, very much so. It's funny. I said that at some point I was gonna go and write like what do you call it? A rating,
like a review,
on
like
the
a Yelp
doctor.
review or something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
a review,
Yeah.
and just let her have it.
Yeah.
Just because it was very frustrating to me, just because I feel like I wasted time. Then again, at the same time, I understand that all things happen for a reason. That's how I calm myself from being totally pissed off, and timing is perfect for what it is. But it was just so frustrating, and I wish I would have left her earlier.
So you have now 2 embryos.
Yep, 2 embryos. So I'm cleared for my surgery. We're good to do another implantation. It originally was supposed to be December of last year, but for something happened, my numbers weren't where they were supposed to be. So it ends up getting delayed to January of this year, which I'm happy about, because December of last year, I ended up losing my father unexpectedly.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. So, and it was right around the time I was supposed to have the implantation. So I'm glad that it didn't happen, because my body it wouldn't have been the best time. So moving on, maybe like 4 weeks after my dad passed, it was time to do my implantation. I'm still grieving. I mean, crying every day. Like, this has been a journey.
Oh, I cannot
to
even
get to where I am.
imagine. I cannot even
Yeah.
imagine going through all of this, losing your
Mm-hmm.
dad. And I know from watching just a little bit that we got to see your dad, like what your
Yeah,
relationship was like with him.
super close.
Yeah.
I talked to him every day. He was a part of my everyday life. I would literally talk to him once a week. He was so excited to be a grandfather. Don't get me crying.
Oh.
You know, he was so excited.
Yeah.
So that was one of the hardest parts because I felt like he missed it, but he didn't because he's still watching.
Course,
But
yeah.
it was tough. It was tough, yeah, to deal with. Exactly. So I started back with therapy, clearly. And because I had to find a way to juggle grieving, and now I'm about to do an implantation. So, as bad as I want to cry every day and ball up in a corner, I can't because my body will not receive this new life. Like, I have to find a way to juggle both of these, which was very difficult. Um, so, and this is just a little tidbit about grief that I'll just share. So instead of crying every day about something that I lost, and this is what my therapist helped me with, she said, you know, switch it. Think about how grateful you are to have had the time that you did have with your dad. And that helped me so much. So much. So those thoughts would become more gratefulness instead of like, oh, he's gone, he's missing this, he's doing that. It was a way to honor him. But it also, for me, kind of put a little bit more pressure on this implantation because I was like, if this doesn't go through, I'm going to be crushed. You know,
Yeah.
like this is,
Yeah. And
how am I going to handle that?
I think that's a big part of all of this that I've had too, where it's almost like you have this fear for like your future self, just knowing how devastated you'll be. It almost like makes it like you're like a caretaking or a concern for like the future you if it doesn't go well. But when you've been through all this stuff and you know how like, you know, you don't have like the naivete of not knowing how it'll feel if it doesn't work. And then you have the I think that's a big part of it that no one really talks about is just this like, what am I going like almost like future, like what is future me going to do? I don't know if she's going to be okay if this doesn't work.
Yeah. Yeah, because like even, you know, while you're doing IVF, life is still going on. Life is still happening. The world doesn't stop because you're in the process of IVF. You know, a lot of women still have to work. A lot of women still have other children to take care of and partners, and they have to juggle all of this with the mental and physical aspect of going through IVF, and it is hard.
And then
So that's why, you know,
for you, on top of that, you're doing this dance of like, I know I need to grieve, but I can't grieve too hard because my body can't handle it. So I can't really lean in the way that you would have, which you're so strong for just hearing your story and like going through that. But I love that tip that you give to people that are grieving, like a way to change the perspective, but it shows your strength that you were able to absorb that and allow yourself to still have that energy of grieving your dad and like honoring him, but not in a way that you felt was going to like deplete your resources and your body, that's the hardest thing. Yeah.
Yeah. And also this other part of like, I think you get this a lot with these treatments. It's like you have anxiety about having anxiety. So you're because like you don't want to negative, like you're like, I don't want to ruin my chances by feeling stressed, but I'm stressed about feeling about the idea that I could be ruining it with stress. It's crazy.
Absolutely. I mean, it was definitely both ends of the spectrum, you know, mourning a life that's lost while trying to create a new one. It's such a interesting place to be in mentally, you know. It took a lot. So we do the implantation. All throughout signs of us preparing to do the implantation, going into being in the waiting room, waiting to go into the area to do the implantation, I heard a song that reminded me of my dad. So it's a lot of little clues of my dad throughout. So that made me feel good. I was like, this is special. So we do the implantation, we wait, do the wait. That was hard too. You know, everyone knows the 7-day, 10-day wait is one of the toughest parts. I did take a test early, but not a few days. I just took it the morning of the blood test. And it was positive.
Amazing.
Oh my God.
Wow.
Yeah, it was positive. And I just remember dropping to my knees, crying, praying, like thanking God.
And is Cameron with
And
you at that, like when you're
oh
taking
yeah,
this
yeah,
test? Yeah.
he was with me that time. Yeah,
Yeah.
he was with me. Yeah, and he
Yeah.
was happy too. We were both just crying, and but because of what happened last time, we're like, we have to wait for the blood test before
Right.
we fully, get excited. So it came back positive, and it, we were overjoyed. What a journey!
Wow.
What a journey! And here we are now. I'm 6 months pregnant. Due
Amazing.
this fall.
Yay.
Yeah, due this fall.
Congratulations. Wow.
Thank you. Yeah, we just did our anatomy scan a couple weeks ago. I had a test like this week, and they said the baby's heart is beautiful, it's healthy, it's growing great, and going through IVF, it's still kind of like, I just got to get to the finish line. I just
Yeah.
got to get there. But I'm staying hopeful.
That I literally have chills thinking just of your dad, like he was able to help from the other side. That's what this feels like. Like it's just
Yeah.
it's really powerful. And it sounds like you had to go through the hardest thing, but he's, I don't, it sounds like you believe it too.
Oh
I
yeah.
believe it.
Oh, I believe it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
I remember after my dad passed, the next day I had a dream, and I don't know how you guys are with dreams if you're into that type of thing, but I dreamed about my dad, and I never had a dream that was so realistic. And we talked about a few different things, but one of the things that I said to him was, "Dad, I'm so sorry you didn't get a chance to see me pregnant." And he said, "Oh, I'll see it."
Oh.
And so I said, "Does that mean I'm going to get pregnant?" He's like, "I gotta go."
Yes.
All right.
He
But
was
after we
coming
did
to tell you.
I
Yeah.
believe it.
Yeah.
After the implantation too, I visited his grave and I said, "Dad, it's only fair if you're going to check out and go up there that you send down your grandchild, give
Yeah.
them a pep talk and send them down." Then I think the next day is when we did the test, and it was positive. So
Wow.
I wholeheartedly believe that my dad, he met his grandchild up in heaven. They had a talk, and he sent them down. He hand selected them.
Yeah. You
For
are going
me.
to
So
That's
I
see
amazing.
said,
your dad in this baby. I
I
just feel
believe
it.
it.
I feel that. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
so incredible. Congratulations. And I'm so glad that everything has gone like smoothly. It feels like, you deserve a smooth ride after all of that.
Such a rough one. Yeah.
Seriously. So I wanted to ask about, your being in the public eye, being this couple that,
Mhm.
because you're obviously it's hard for anyone, I think, who, especially when you've been married for a while and you guys got married like immediately, but you were like, you've been married since what, 2019?
2018.
2018. Wow. That show
Yeah.
was filmed 2
Mhm.
years before it came out.
Yeah,
That's
it
crazy.
was.
So
Mhm.
you've been married now, what?
7 years in
7 years.
November.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
So I think for any couple that's been married 7 years, one of the harder parts about infertility is like this feeling of like everyone else is thinking like, where's the baby? What's going on? Where's the baby? But you guys are like this famous idealistic couple that everyone follows and, roots for. And I'm sure on your end, you get people aren't like polite. People are in your comments or, saying that out loud, or where's the, or like, having to deal with like that public pressure of people feeling like they need to know your business. Yeah.
Mhm. I mean, I feel like the baby comments started almost immediately when the show came out. But once we really started doing the fertility journey and people didn't know that we were doing the fertility journey, I mean, people would DM us every single day. We would post a picture. People would say comments. Are you going to give your husband a kid? What's
Yeah.
wrong with you? Like, why are you not having a baby? Just like ugly, crazy things. Or they would see a picture of me. Maybe my weight was yo-yoing. Oh, she's pregnant. I know it. Like,
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But people would just say ugly things. I'm like, people say this to get people to have a baby. That's not how you do that. Like, you're depriving your husband of giving him a child. And this is
That's
before I
crazy.
came out with
Yeah.
the fact that I want to give him a child. Like, we're
I'm so
struggling
sorry. That's awful.
every day, multiple comments every day. And I think that's one of the reasons. Well, one, we wanted to share our fertility story because, like I mentioned, so many people need to hear it and they go through it. But also, it's just kind of like so the fans could be like, look, okay,
Right.
we are trying to have a baby.
I can't imagine, because I feel like, even a not couple out of the public eye probably feels a sense of that pressure, a sense of people are thinking it. But having we have over 2 million followers, I think you have the 2 million people are a lot less polite. So that's horrible. Yeah. But you did a post basically being like, back off, kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so I did a post. Well, actually, Cam was the main one because he was getting super frustrated. Like, look, leave my wife alone. Stop asking if she's pregnant. If we get pregnant, we'll let you know. Like, we understand you guys are excited and you're anticipating the next phase of our life, but stop. Like, please stop. And then I started to be outspoken about it. And then that's when we kind of shared that we were going through the fertility after that, because some people were still continuing. They just didn't, it's just like, okay, that's nice, but have you tried this? Maybe you guys should like drink vinegar water, and like
Right.
people were, yeah. So
no, it's brutal to deal with like that many people's opinions and comments and unsolicited and DMs and just people who feel like maybe they're well intentioned, but it's like,
yeah,
it's hard to turn off.
Absolutely. And I remember as one particular time after I had the miscarriage, I feel like that's when I was kind of in one of my most fragile states. And that's when I logged online and I just saw the ugliest comment about, why haven't you given your husband a baby? And it was like soon after that. And I just like broke down. That's when I like took a break. I took a break from the internet. I took a break from everything. And I think also that's when we were like, let's talk about our fertility journey.
I can imagine, because you said in that moment, that's when you like saw him and the excitement. And then, so I feel like that comment is just so hurtful because it comes off as like you're not being, and I think that is part of like, you're not being a good wife, or you're not, which is just so obviously not true, but,
or like a feeling of this is my fault, or like, this is, this is, I'm doing, I'm failing in this way.
Yes.
Yeah. Because, a lot of people, when it comes to fertility challenges, they just see the woman anyway. And my husband, actually, he had to get himself right too, because he had some stuff going on with his sperm. And he talks about that as well in some of our stuff, that he had to get into a healthier way. But people always look at the woman, you did this, you. And it's like, well, wait a minute.
Give your husband
even if that's
baby.
the case.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. People need to give others more grace, especially when it comes to things like that,
So how's that all going now? Or even like, since you kind of, came out with it, are people being more kind? And, or are you still getting, cause look, you could always get it, right? Like, oh, you shouldn't be doing that while you're pregnant, or your baby comes and I see that there's a Lego on the floor in the corner of your picture. How could you, I'm sure that you could get it any which way, but are people being kinder now?
People are being more kind. I think once we came out and talked about our fertility journey, one of the things that really touched me and made me happy that I did it was that so many other women came out and shared about their fertility journey and how appreciative they were that I was talking about it publicly. And that's when I was like, okay, I have to do more of this. Like this, let me be an advocate. Let me be a testimony, because a lot of women, of course, I'm grateful for shows like this as well, because you do talk about it, but a lot of women don't talk about it. They feel shamed. They feel like they're doing something wrong. They don't want people to know. It's like, no, you'd be surprised how many women are going through this. Like, you're not alone.
Yeah.
All different walks of life, people. So, but yeah, people are they're grateful for that, and they're nicer. I don't see as many mean comments, but if I do, I just hit block.
That's more power to you. And I guess on that note, I guess my last question for you, and for the listeners, anyone who's in the thick of it, do you have any advice or anything that you felt like kind of helped you, in the worst moments, or in just like your moments of feeling kind of hopeless, or anything that that just helped you get through it?
Yeah, I would definitely say for me, it really helps me to find an anchor, whether that is someone else in your life, your partner, or for me, it was my faith. I found that leaning into my faith really helped me get through the toughest times. Prayer, journaling, anything. But I think finding an anchor, going to talk to a therapist if you can, also helps. And that helped me to not lose my hope because, like I mentioned earlier, it's so easy to just feel like, oh man, it's never going to happen. And even if it doesn't happen the way that you think it's going to happen, there are so many different journeys to motherhood if you choose to stay on the journey. So don't feel frustrated if your journey towards motherhood looks a little different. You know, so just keep going. Keep hope alive.
Yes. I
Yeah,
love
let me
that.
be your testimony. Took me a long time.
Yeah.
I love that. And you're proof of that. So thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story. I'm sure it's going to be inspiring to so many people, and also just let them know that they're not alone, that it's not always,
Mhm.
super simple. And there's
Yeah.
a lot, you know what I mean? A lot of people only share, I think, when they have the success. And so you don't really see
Mhm.
like that's what we want to do with this show, is really share like the details of what goes into those success stories that you see online. And I think this is like really important what you're doing. And thank you so much. And we're so happy for you. Congratulations again.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah, your
you.
strength is inspiring. I'm so glad to have been able to meet you and hear your story. So hoping you the best. And I'm not huge on social media, but I will be keeping an eye on you and sending good energy your way. So yeah, really nice to meet you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this.
And that's it for this episode of Baby Steps. We'll be back next time.